PewDiePie, Felix Kjellberg, the #1 YouTuber ever to exist, essentially. He is a Swedish YouTuber who got famous by playing games and talking, just talking along with it. He actually is really amazingly entertaining at that, in my opinion. He came into some trouble recently, back last February, because he was accused of making Nazi jokes, and he lost his deal with Maker Studios and has kind of had to figure out how to navigate the waters since then. In light of what happened in Charlottesville, Virginia, he made this announcement. Let's take a look.
Now would be a good time as any to just say, I want nothing to do with these people. I don't think anyone that watches me think I'm an actual Nazi. But I know a lot of people still might have doubt, mainly because of all the jokes that I've been making. At this point, I really just want to distance myself from all this, because seeing it as well, I remember back when everything happened in February, I was sort of like, I mean, they're just jokes. There's not actual Nazis out there. What are you talking about? And then I look at this and I'm like, oh, okay, I see. Okay. Well, if for some reason Nazis think it's great that I'm making these jokes, I don't want to give them that benefit. So I'm gonna stop doing it. Nazi memes are not even that funny anymore. It's sort of a dead meme. So just to make it clear, no more, okay?
So there it is. For those of you who are unfamiliar with what happened to kind of get him into hot water, Wall Street Journal, actually, the cutting edge media company, the Wall Street Journal, put together a series of videos that they thought, since he invoked Nazi imagery, were morally repugnant, essentially, and that kind of snowballed into a bunch of media coverage of it. Here's a video where they show what they're talking about.
Go inside the stories, the scoop. Oh no, that's better. Scoop is better. Let's get into the latest scoops.
So that's that. Thoughts, 5 words or less.
Fuck yeah, Felix.
So now you want to stop.
PewDiePie's not evil at all. Seeing those videos, what do you think of the whole situation?
Well, the Wall Street Journal campaign against PewDiePie was very strange, and it was very divisive on the internet because a lot of stuff people felt was totally taken out of context. A lot of people who've been watching PewDiePie for years and years and years and really know him and understood him felt like it was a total misrepresentation of his character. I kind of agree with what you're saying, Brett. Like, I don't think that PewDiePie is evil. I think that I believe his statement, I do, and maybe I'm naive for thinking that, but I think that he probably didn't realize, naively so, that there were real Nazis out there that were sort of, that did find his jokes funny, or that, I don't know, I think he didn't realize that he was making light of a serious problem. He doesn't live in the United States, so I don't know if he was really aware of the tension, the climate in this country. I'm gonna take his
He lives in Europe.
Yeah.
He lives in Europe, like in Germany, it's illegal to fly those kinds of Nazi images. But I mean, he did this as a response to Charlottesville. And so I think that he is a little bit removed from some of the events that have like heightened this tension that we have in this country. I believe his apology. I think it's unfortunate that he had to issue it because that indicates that he was leading up to this not taking Nazism seriously, and that is too bad. But if someone calls himself out, I think that's always a good thing. So yeah, good for him for calling himself out. Jason's incredulous.
Yeah, my furrow's burning. I don't feel. I'm sorry, I disagree. I'm not a fan of PewDiePie. I don't watch his videos. I think his apology was sincere, I'm sure, but I'm not buying that he didn't know Nazis existed. I mean, he has 56 point something million subscribers, and he puts out all these videos. I'm sure somewhere along the line, someone messaged him, slid into his DMs that said, "Hey, PewDiePie, awesome. Thanks for pushing forth the message of hate, etc., etc." Because I mean, you have that many subscribers. Someone's going to identify with what you're saying. Now, one of the things in his apology that was kind of, I guess, I wouldn't say hypocritical, but didn't make any sense. He was like, "I have no hate in my heart, but I hate people who hate." Okay, PewDiePie.
Right.
But I mean, good for him for distancing himself from that. But I hope that him, along with everyone else, doesn't make distancing themselves from white nationalists like the cool thing to do, because it was always the cool thing to not support that. It was always the cool thing to not be racist, you know? So I guess good for him, maybe, but I for 1 second don't believe that he didn't know that Nazis didn't exist.
That thing that you said where it's like, I don't have hate in my heart, I hate people who hate is I think exactly like the level of sophistication that PewDiePie lives in, which is they sound like things that in your head at first glance might make sense. But then when you really think about him, it's just he's not there yet. He's really talented at playing video games and making funny comments. And then he tries to pull that off into other areas and make jokes about other things. And he's not quite sophisticated at comedy mind enough to make them well. So he obviously knows that Nazis exist and that there's some kind of hot button issue, and he knows that World War II probably happened, but he doesn't really get the full context, as you say. Obviously he knows that stuff because he's using those images in a way to provoke people. But a lot of the specific context in which those Nazi images arose were just to be like weird images altogether, like his intro to his drama thing, and that's like his drama story or whatever. That graphic intro with the still of Hitler is like, there's drama and this guy incites drama, so that's relevant. There's a little more context there. And other videos that were cited by the Wall Street Journal, he's just reacting to as weird videos that are out there. He played one that he didn't know what was in the body of it, and he watches it, and at the end there's these guys who without their shirts on who open up a message that they themselves didn't know that said death to all Jews. And Felix is responding to that stuff. So the full context kind of makes it less like he is supporting Nazis. I don't believe he supports Nazis whatsoever.
But I think what happened in internet culture, which has a lot of people reeling and distancing themselves and like having to renounce white supremacy, is because people didn't take meme culture seriously. People thought, oh, people are just sharing memes, people are just creating these funny graphics, it's controversial, it's provocative, it's not a big deal though. And then you see in Charlottesville, no, it's more than meme culture. These are real people behind these keyboards that gathered, and I think I don't think that he didn't know that Nazis, of course he knows that Nazis existed, but I don't think that he understood the scope of that they are a force that gathered in Charlottesville. There was a mass populace of people that all agreed on some certain way, shape, or form of ideas, whether you want to like, I mean, I'm not gonna split hairs about like alt-right, white supremacy, Nazis, like that's there, you were there, like you were there if you were there and you know what you stood for. But I think that you do see a lot of meme creators, sort of like shit posters, that didn't realize that they were perpetuating this by their stupid memes. And they had a real glass of cold water when they saw what happened in Charlottesville. They're like, oh, whoa, we didn't mean it like that. Well, good, you should renounce that because you were a part of that as well. In some little ounce, you were acknowledging that it's okay to post stuff like that. So I'm glad that PewDiePie is coming out with his 56 million followers and saying, no, I'm not a part of that. I'm not posting shit like that anymore.
It's interesting watching people develop a level of responsibility that folks in previously established media have had to deal with. Because you're right, it's a bunch of anonymous people that you don't know when someone says some weird, terrible, hateful thing, whether they're being serious or not, when it's just like a comment at the bottom buried amongst millions of others. But here's something from this Mashable article that kind of pisses me off in a very, like, I guess, inside comedy way, which is YouTube's most prominent personality, PewDiePie, has finally realized what we've all already known. Nazi jokes are tasteless at best, hateful at worst. And after the events of this past weekend, we have a hard time understanding how anyone could find them funny. So the idea that all Nazi jokes are tasteless at best, hateful at worst, like I get why they say that, but that I don't agree with that statement.
Why is that?
Mel Brooks. The answer is Mel Brooks. If you think that all Nazi jokes are tasteless at best, hateful at worst, here's a clip. Let's just watch this famous Mel Brooks excerpt. So that's from The Producers, which is many people's like favorite comedy of all time.
Springtime for Hitler and Germany.
Right, it is itself a Nazi joke, and Mel Brooks did a bunch of jokes about Nazis, and they weren't tasteless.
Well, I mean,
they were super duper effective and useful. And Mel Brooks in his own interview, there's a lot of stuff they do that's on CNN that I think is stupid, but they do have this One History of Comedy series right now, and a lot of those series are really good. But in it, Mel Brooks talks about the importance. He knew that he had to make people laugh at Hitler because it was a way to take away a lot of his power.
Take it back to Charlie Chaplin, the great dictator. You see every time something happens, you see that speech from the great dictator go around where he talks about this revelation, his character in the movie. It's a rare speaking role for Charlie Chaplin. That's another example of he's parodying a Hitler-esque type villain. So I would agree with you. And I think we've said this before on the show. For some reason, it gets misconstrued that we don't say this, but we regularly do. I think that a joke about anything can and should be made.
Nothing's off limits.
Nothing is off limits when it comes to joking. It doesn't mean that we will not critique that joke, that I may personally be offended by that joke, but I absolutely think that people should be able to tell that joke. It doesn't mean that you're gonna be a celebrated, amazing comic. Not every joke is about a controversial subject is gonna be great, but there is gonna be some great, provocative, healing, cathartic material about the tough things that happen in life. So I would disagree with that Mashable quote as well.
Yeah, and Mel Brooks always said, like, I wanna make sure that I am not punching down.
Yeah.
And the more off limits a subject seems, the better the joke has to be, and the more important it is that it's joking about the right stuff from the right angle to essentially make fun of the jackass.
SNL after 9/11.
Yeah.
SNL after 9/11 did some of their best, like, difficult, challenging, hilarious work. I can't remember the name of the actors I had playing Saddam Hussein was like so, I mean, and doing that phone call with Barack Obama and like all the different cells coming up. Maybe some of you guys can remember this in the comment section below. But that's something that a lot of people like, you can never, don't joke about it, don't even talk about it. You have a bunch of New Yorkers on SNL being like, no, we need to.
And obviously the jokes, to me anyways, the jokes that that PewDiePie was making weren't at that level. And that's why he came under attack. And that's why Disney severed ties with him, essentially.